It really is. The muscle song. Come on.
Yeah.
That's how I roll.
That's not how it rolls.
It's good. I like it. I'm glad that you're here. Oh, that's the extended version. Nice. Some more, but we have to get on with the show. Hey everybody, how are you? Welcome to our Tuesday evening Anything Goes to our second week here, and I'm so pleased to be with Josef Stetter, who is a friend of the show as well, who's been on our Anything Goes show on Thursday nights, and he's actually debuting Anything Goes to week 2. How are you?
I'm awesome.
You're awesome.
Yeah.
And Joe is going to take care of talking about everything to do with careers and the job market and recruitment. A lot of ground to cover for sure. Thank you so much, you guys. I want to thank Frequency 5 at FM, Maria and Joseph. I still am dealing with this, whatever this is, but my voice is a lot better than it's been. I want to thank all of you guys, the viewers, the loyal supporters. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank my co-host from Thursday night, Julia Scalise. I hope you're watching. And of course, my baby girl, Felicia at home, and everybody that makes Anything Goes what it is. So how are you doing?
Excited to share some wisdom and impart some golden nuggets of, never thought about that or never knew about that.
I know. And I don't know, you don't know this yet, but you're going to know. We're actually using me as a guinea pig to find a job. Absolutely. We are going to do it. And if you guys know, and I mentioned it last week, we have Joe and others who are going to be doing segments once a month on Tuesday night. So tonight is kind of an intro to all that is Josef Stetter and all that is the things that he focuses on. We're going to do some character development, just like in the movies, and we're going to talk a few things. And I have some questions, and I'm sure our viewers have some questions as well. I started my social media journey on LinkedIn about 2 years ago. Okay, and let me digress for a minute. Okay. We're going to use me as a guinea pig because I think that this is going to be a really good science project to really determine some of the good things that are happening, but also the pitfalls of recruitment and things that are going on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there's lots of them.
And there's lots of them.
Yeah.
And Joseph is such a wealth of information. So I was in the corporate space for over 3 decades, and then 2, maybe 3 years ago, walked away. Took some time off for myself, and then I reemerged and decided to kind of fall into the whole entrepreneur startup business. Okay. Yep. And I've been kind of doing my own thing for the last 18 months or so, I started my social media journey on LinkedIn primarily because when I reemerged after walking away to take some time off, I figured LinkedIn would be the best place to look for a job. Right. I had very few followers on there. And one thing that it taught me was, how to work social media, how to build your brand, how to make connections. I never really found a job on LinkedIn per se, but I did find a lot of connections and a lot of great people on there. What do you say about, because I know a lot of people are always like, I can't find a job online. I can't. So
I'll start by saying I love LinkedIn as a tool.
Yes.
But most people don't use it correctly because they use it just like Indeed or Workopolis or Career Builder, where they kind of go, okay, I've posted my profile or I have a resume up there.
Right.
But then, for example, their LinkedIn profile is very generic.
Right.
So on LinkedIn, it used to be that you have to request testimonials from people. You can still do that.
Right.
But they kind of changed the setting now where you can kind of say, here's my skill sets, and people kind of like your skill set. But that doesn't give any value to LinkedIn. The actual testimonials gives you instant credibility.
Right.
The other thing that LinkedIn has that not enough people use correctly is a function called InMail. So the cheapest version is about $45, and you can reach out to 10 people that are not in your network.
Right.
Now, what most people do is they go, hi, I'm looking for a job. Please hire me. and you haven't established rapport.
That's it.
So one of the things I teach people is if you're going to use LinkedIn, first of all, try to find a similarity. Like you went to the same school, university or college. So ask a question like, what was your experience going to that school?
Right.
If you're reaching out to higher levels, the best way to kind of do that is to kind of say in an email, I'm writing an article or I'm doing research for an article.
Mm-hmm.
Given that you are an executive in a successful company, can I interview you?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you want to do is make it about them.
Right.
So what are you most proud of? What are your 3 biggest achievements? What do you think has made you so successful in this industry?
Mm-hmm.
And then as they start sharing that information, obviously acknowledge them because it's important. And then after they've shared their wisdom, what you want to do is say, okay, if you are mentoring someone who's new to the industry or hasn't been in the industry for a while, what things would you focus on?
Right.
So now they're telling you the inside scoop. Now, after they've done that, you've earned the right to say, would you critique my resume?
Mm-hmm.
Notice I didn't say ask for the job, but critique the resume.
Right.
Because if you're dealing with an executive, for example, like a VP, who now has bragged about how great they are, she has bragged about how great she is, has shared nuggets of, by the way, do this or do this. And then you've asked them to critique your resume. They're actually writing the resume that they tend to hire for them.
Right.
And after they've critiqued your resume, you can kind of say, listen, this has been great information. I've learned so much from you. You know what? I'd actually love to work for you because, I think we'd work very well together. I'd learn so much from you. And since they already wrote your resume, they already like you.
So I have my own thoughts about the resume, and I'm going to be very rebellious in this area as we progress on this segment moving forward. But that said, Joe, why don't you, I'm going to continue the topic of LinkedIn and obviously some of the ways to go ahead and look for a job and get a job. Thank you, Joseph. So first of all, why don't you let everybody know? I mean, a lot of people do know you, and you, like I said, you're a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. And one thing about Joe, you guys, very, very helpful. You guys really do need to connect with him either on LinkedIn. He's on Instagram, the Celebrate group, and as well on Facebook. Really connect with him. Wealth of information. Always ready to help. Why don't you give everybody a bird's eye view? I know you do so much, but why don't you give everybody a bit of how you started in recruitment and talk to us about some of the things that you've seen in terms of what's been very fulfilling for you, but what have you also found to be very challenging?
Okay, so I'll start with I didn't really know what I want to do when I grew up. And so having the parent influence, you need to have a career. I studied economics and business.
Right.
In the past 20 plus years, I've switched careers 9 times and jobs about 17 times.
Okay.
Because when I reached a certain plateau of like, okay, I'm the top of the team or whatever, I got bored.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'm not truly passionate about it. And so I kind of transitioned from one to another. And that kind of started my path of understanding this. Now, as part of, life happens. And when life happens, you can either collapse or you can choose to invest in yourself in terms of taking courses on self-development, reading to kind of better yourself. So I did these courses like I did the Tony Robbins Walk of Fire. And when he was doing some of the exercise, I went, why is nobody applying this to work? Why is nobody applying this to the interview, to the resume, to anything like that? And I took not only mental notes, but notes on what and how I would do. And then when I got into recruiting, like I worked in finance, left finance, and got into recruiting. And in my first year working for an agency, I billed $760,000 for them. And my Christmas bonus was cheese and crackers. And when I looked at the owner and I said, what is this? She looked at me and said, well, the cheese is from Pusateri's. The crackers are from the dollar store. And I looked at her and I said... Not
even from Loblaws or Fortinos.
And I looked at her and I said, do I look like I'm 65 years old that I need cheese from Pusateri's? At least buy me a CD because, this is aging myself a little bit. Yes. I can put that to use. And
Oh, don't worry. We're going to talk about age discrimination. Don't worry.
And I kind of went,
what?
All of this was like, I was in a company that there was 11 staff there.
Yeah.
The closest person to me was my supervisor, who billed $140,000 for that year.
And you booked 760. Yeah.
And I looked at the owner and said, most of this is new business that I brought in because I built the relationships, not because you had it, and so forth. You know what? I don't need your brand. I'll go do it on myself.
Right.
So I've been in recruiting for close to 20 years right now. I've had the pleasure of recruiting for companies like Deloitte & Touche, Aecon Construction, Tata Consulting Services, Skechers Shoes. And then in the process, when life's happened to me, I wanted to kind of secure my job, so I started writing a book, and I wrote 2 versions of this book. One's called Canada, Congratulations, You're Hired, and one's called USA, Congratulations, You're Hired, that has every resource you can imagine to find a job.
Congratulations, you are hired. Who do I need to know to get a copy of this? Wondering. This is great.
I thought I gave you a copy.
You actually have not.
Did I not email you a copy? All right, so
maybe you have, but I'm old school. I like one of these. This is really good. Oh my God, look at all of this. This is fantastic.
So, like for example, the book is written in point form, where you never have to read more than a page and a half at a time.
Right.
But it's so for dummies that you don't need to think. You go, oh, this makes sense.
Right.
And in the process, because I've always enjoyed giving back, I started giving seminars at all of the government agencies. And I'm proud to say that I've coached over 10,000 people to find employment, and I have a 90% accuracy of finding anybody employment in any field in under 3 months.
Well, then this should be very simple.
The fastest I've ever found people work, and it's about 25 people, is 2 days.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So in that, again, it's a combination of going, okay, here's self-development and the psychology of improving yourself, having confidence or whatever, but here's no one's really, like, at least from what I've seen, no one's really applied it to the semantics of theirs. So even for social media like LinkedIn, it's a phenomenal tool. But so many people, like even myself, I'm a LinkedIn open networker. So I get daily friend requests and so forth. And I'm amused, as soon as I say yes to a lot of people, they automatically send me their sales pitch.
You know why? Sorry to interrupt you, Joe. It's because I think you do have on your tagline that you are a recruiter, that you work to help get people jobs.
No, but I have people trying to sell me, let's say, a better website, or trying to sell me a better social media SEO.
Yeah, the sales pitch without even knowing you.
Right. Yes, so it's automatic into the sales pitch. And don't get me wrong, I've actually made some great connections through LinkedIn that, are joint ventures that are happening right now. So I'm not dismissing that there's areas of expertise, there's things that can be used in terms of there. And yes, my profile does say, you can go ahead and contact me. But again, it's a level of, for example, if on your LinkedIn profile, similar to a resume, under your skills, you wrote that you're hardworking, dedicated, committed, a team player, excellent communication skills. I can tell you, in 20 years of recruiting, I've never once searched for those words when I'm hiring somebody.
Right.
And similarly, all those words are subjective, because your definition of hardworking and my definition of hardworking are very different.
Yeah.
And if I use industry examples, like, for example, someone that works in public accounting during tax season, it's mandatory practically that they have to work 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
So what's hardworking? 100? Whereas in someone that works as a nurse, for example, might have to do 4 hours of overtime because the next shift hasn't arrived, whatever happened. Both are very hardworking, but the definition of hardworking is very different.
Yeah, and it's all about differentiating ourselves, isn't it?
Correct. And so the generic kind of profile, like, I've worked here, I know how to do this, I know how to do this, is redundant to me, because look, anybody can say, I know how to do something. Just because you sold lemonade when you were 10 years old doesn't make you a salesperson.
Self-starter.
Right. But doesn't make you a salesperson per se.
Right.
There. Now, if you've been in sales where it's predominantly account management, but you're not actually selling, you're just upselling, it's a slightly different skill set than fully selling.
Yeah.
For example. So, and the easiest way to describe it is, when you're at work and you come home to your partner, your family, most of the time you don't say, I worked today. I did some stuff. I did some
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
You usually go, you know what? I was dealing with this huge problem, and I figured out how to do it. I did this, this, and this, and I'm so excited that I solved it.
Right.
That is the energy that you want to portray on your LinkedIn.
The accomplishments, the solutions.
Right.
Yeah.
On your LinkedIn,
Yeah.
on your resume, on your interview. And this is a mistake that most people make in the job market because, unfortunately, in North America, if you were to line up, let's say, a law job and an engineering job, an accounting job, a marketing job, an IT job, 70% of the job description is exactly the same.
Yeah.
All of them say other duties as assigned. All of them say excellent communication skills. And trust me, I've met a lot of people with really bad communication skills, but they get hired.
Multitasker, working on multiple
right.
deadlines.
So when people try to customize, and I use that term loosely, their resume, they're trying to stick all these generic subjective words that don't really help you. And they're not actually focusing on the right thing. So same thing on the LinkedIn and the resume. It ties in that we've been taught as a society to focus on the action words: managed, direct, liaised, coordinated. And yes, you need them. But if you don't tell me the results that you produced at work, it doesn't matter that you managed.
Yeah.
Because if you tell me I managed a project, as an employer, if I don't know the company that you worked for, or I don't know you, I'm going to assume you did this much work.
Right.
But you might have done this much work. So if you say I managed a project, but you don't tell me the budget of the project, you don't tell me how many people were involved in the project.
I feel like it's like telling a story, a really compelling story, so that people will want to learn more about you. But we're going to get to it in a second. I want to see who's tuned in. This is really good. I could talk about this for hours and hours. And I want to also just leave this with you, and then we're going to get back to it, is, again, when I joined LinkedIn, and this was like the start of my social media journey, okay, I used to see every other post really, really ragging on recruiters, okay? Talking about how crappy recruiters were and recruiters were useless. And I have some fantastic friends, Joe included, that are phenomenal recruiters, phenomenal people, very, very passionate. There are some myths, I think, associated with recruitment in the context of, they are trying to follow a direction from their client who's hiring them to find a specific niche person, right? So there's so much gray. It's not a black and white.
But here's the thing, and this is, I think, where most people forget when they think about recruiting. Like any industry, there's good and bad.
Yeah.
Like any industry, there's politics.
Yeah.
Like any industry,
there's
So you have to understand that, for example, in the world of recruiting, if I've interviewed Mirella and my coworker is the one that has the job posting, my coworker might not want to split the commission with me. So he's not even going to look at Mirella, or she's not going to look at Mirella because they don't want to split commission.
Right.
I know of especially some of the larger agencies where if, let's say, I as a recruiter have good rapport and I've gotten a number of orders filled with the same client, head office can come in and say, you know what? This is now a head office client. It's no longer yours. I've had a client that, would tell me I need urgently this many people, and I would work 18-hour days to get them, and then they would say, okay, put them on hold for a month.
Right.
And then put them on hold for 3 months. And so there's that level where sometimes the client is very slow in responding. Canadian culture as a whole, we're very afraid of confrontation.
Oh, yeah. And I have a question too, Joe. Why is it that I see sometimes the same postings regurgitated over and over again? They are, 18 days old and 30 days old and 60, then they come back 2 days. Is it because they haven't found them? Is it because they haven't removed them? Is it because they are they've got somebody hardwired internally and they're trying to see what's going on out there?
There might be kind of up to 5 factors that affect it. Number one, similar to your job, if you post on any of the databases, but you haven't touched your resume for let's say 3 months, you're on page 700. Nobody sees it.
Right.
So in order to refresh it, they get new. The average job posting today will get between 350 and 5,000 applicants.
Wow.
Now, most companies hiring professionals, recruiters included, will look at the first 100 and go, probably from the first 100, I can find a good candidate.
So the first 100 basically means you almost have to apply on the first day that it comes out.
No. So here's the trick. So most job postings will say, don't call us. We'll call you.
Yeah.
And Canadians, we're very polite, so we're going to go, okay, I'll wait. So I teach people, call. Say that your internet just crashed. Your computer just crashed. You're not, like, you didn't get a confirmation. So can you please check if you received the application?
Right.
The moment that they go to check, you go from wherever you are near the bottom to the top.
But you're assuming that they pick up the phone when you call to get these things checked out. You know how hard it is to get to any hiring manager or HR personnel. Do you have any idea?
Oh, I do, but there's loopholes to every conversation.
I told you I was going to be the rebellious one here. Okay.
By all means,
hold on. Oh no, because listen, I've had 35 years and I've seen it all, just like you. And this is fantastic conversation. I just want to see who's tuned in. Let's say hi to a few people. We got Sonia Gill, who's on. Thank you so much for tuning in. Jimmy, hey, how are you? Thank you for joining. Jimmy says, fight and survive. Yeah, absolutely. Doris says, good evening. Hi, Doris. How are you? So great to see you. We've got Andrew Davids who's watching. Thank you very much for tuning in. We've got Celeste Seferina who's watching. Thank you so much. Kim Bassler is watching. Hey, Kim, how are you? Kim is actually joining our segment next Tuesday night here on Anything Goes to Business. She's going to be talking about health and well-being overall, fitness and mental mindset. It's going to be great. Like I said, every single one of these folks has so much expertise in their respective fields. So great to see you, Kim. She says, hi, guys. Oh, Joe Stetter is watching. Julia Scalise is watching. Hey, Goo, how are you? Goo is her nickname amongst a few other things. How are you? All good, though, I promise. We will see you here on Thursday night right beside me. She says, hey. We've got Addie Stetter. I wonder who that is. Hi, Addie. How are you? Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got Lena Bartolini. She says, awesome stuff, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got Renato in the house who's also watching. We got Gloria. Hey, Gloria, how are you? Happy New Year. I haven't talked to you in a while. How are you? Gloria says, hey there, glad I could join. Renato says, hey, how are you doing? Lena says, exactly. Addie says, so true. Amazing tips. Absolutely. And this is literally, you guys, just the beginning. There are so many tidbits of wealth of information that Joe is going to be offering. And like I said earlier in the show, tonight's episode is really just to kind of provide an intro, an overall overview, kind of the start of a movie that's going to be developing, if you will, because there's just so much to cover. And I'm looking forward to doing this with Joe in subsequent months. And if you guys missed it, I'm also using myself as a guinea pig. I've actually tested out a few theories a couple of years ago, and then again recently over the course of my own journey. And I'm literally going to put Joe on the hot seat on this because I've been a hiring manager and I have been working in the corporate world, and there is not the wrong way and the right way. There's just good and bad in everything. There's pitfalls with everything. And I feel like there's the right way to do things, but I also feel like there's a few processes that are very flawed, if I can say, right?
Listen, it's all about perspective. There is always a process that might be flawed, but if you tweak it just a tiny bit, it becomes brilliant.
It becomes brilliant.
It's how you
have
apply
such brilliant tips too. Like, yeah, I'm telling you, like, honestly, you guys, stay tuned. We've got, I hope I pronounce this correctly, Marius Galiza says, very informative. Thank you so much. Adam Moss. Hey, Adam, how are you? Great to see you on Anything Goes here on Tuesday nights. He says, Joe knows his stuff. Brilliant mind. Everyone pay attention.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to pay attention too. Elena's watching. Hi, Elena. How are you? Lena says, Joe, amazing. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Let's go back to a couple years back. So, excuse me, guys. So a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, I walked away from the corporate career. And a lot of people do know, some people don't know. I had to. It was just a matter of some personal and professional catalysts that had kind of come around in an 18-month span. And so I decided, after 35 years, it was time to take a break. Now, some people would say, Marella, how would you do that? You left a high-paying job. You didn't have a job to fall back on. when it comes to health, when it comes to mental, emotional, and physical health, you have no choice. I made the right choice. I always felt that I could make the money again, but I really did need to take the time for myself, and I don't regret the decision. But here's what I found, okay? My career progressed. So if you think about, so my areas are, there's a whole bunch, but marketing, branding, communications, business strategy. There's a lot of just promotion and business development and event planning and social media and digital marketing, and it goes on and on and on and on, okay? And I've been very fortunate to work at all different levels and even being embedded in operations and business strategy, okay? And I'm a people person. I really believe in people and culture, and company culture is very important. I just posted today about how I will continue to advocate for mentally healthy workplaces. I think it's very important.
I'm smiling because I've just rebranded myself as a corporate culturist. And so there's a level where I look at an organization, and here's the thing. In my recruiting business in the past 20 years, I've maybe replaced 5 people under warranty.
Right.
And my warranties are usually 6 months to a year because I'm that confident in my candidates.
Right.
Because I'm not afraid to be transparent with my candidates, say this is the good, this is the bad, this is the ugly, so you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And I'll give, if I may share a quick
course,
example.
Of course,
so
yeah.
I remember I had a client, manufacturing company. The owner was a very, very dirty old man. Let's just say he would borderline sexually harass his administrative assistant. But when I came in, he was very open about that. So he was willing to pay $20,000 above market to find an administrative assistant that would tolerate that, and some very hefty bonuses. Now, because of the client confidentiality, I couldn't interview you and say, you'll be sexually harassed. So I spent about 20 minutes going, you will need really, really thick skin to work here.
Right.
There might be some jokes or comments that you might hear at a construction site or maybe at a bar that some people might consider inappropriate at work. Mm-hmm. There might be comments on your attire that not necessarily work appropriate. And I would repeat this until the woman would basically say back to me, so you're basically saying to me that this guy has a lot of sexual energy. And so I found a woman that had a lot of sass and loved that kind of banter.
Like that challenge?
Not that challenge, but the banter, the sexual banter. She loved that. And she ended up working there for about 6 years, making $95,000 as an administrative assistant with her bonuses. And until she went back to become a project manager, I kept in touch with her, and she told me this was one of her favorite jobs.
You're kidding.
No.
And I'm going to challenge this for a minute, okay? I'm going to challenge it. She could put up with it, and she had the sass, and she could handle it, no problem. But I'm going to play the devil's advocate for a minute, okay? You know where I'm going with this.
I actually have a story of the devil's advocate.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be the devil's advocate as a woman, but also as a professional businesswoman, which is, why was that behavior tolerated and accepted and condoned? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
But here's where culture comes into effect.
Company culture is it's pivotal. It's pivotal.
Look, there's a level where different cultures, different behaviors. And so there is a sense like, so for example, because I love the Latin culture and I'm fascinated, I've been salsa dancing for 14 years. In Cuban culture, for example, sensuality is part of the communication because the dance is so sensual.
Right.
And the communication of the sensuality can be used as a yes or no communication right away.
Yes.
So if someone comes from a culture where the sexuality is kind of
like a language of love, let's say.
In part,
okay,
yeah.
I get that. But when it comes to, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I get that. But when it comes to, like, if the boss was just, making a comment about, I don't know, the woman's blouse, and she was okay, and she was just like, and that's on her to want to, but then there's a level of crossing the line, which I think is very inappropriate and unprofessional.
And this is where like the Me Too movement and things that are happening.
Just playing the devil's advocate, Joe.
No, but and I'm going to give you a similar example, but the opposite.
Okay.
I have a friend that graduated from HR, got hired for a non-for-profit organization, and the president was very sexually inappropriate.
Okay.
And she was on the job for 3 weeks and kind of had a nervous breakdown, and basically got legal advice, sued him, and luckily for her, one of the guys that worked there, his conscience was, I can't let this happen, and he was willing to testify that the owner would take the boys to the strip bar and brag about getting dances, and that there's been 6 or 7 women that have left that office crying, kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
or worse.
They ended up kind of settling out of court without, going through. But the owner of the non-for-profit, which was very well known, hired the most ruthless female labor lawyer to defend him.
Right.
And she's never lost. Luckily for her, again, in some of the due diligence, stuff came up very quickly as pattern.
Yes.
And so she went, settle it, make it go away.
Right. But what's the damage, though? And I want to ask this, okay? I am a real proponent for company culture. I've worked for some amazing companies, and here's the but. Large companies, I've worked for companies that are 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people, okay?
Right.
They can be fantastic companies. They can have fantastic people in them, but 50,000 people later, 20,000 people later, you cannot control or contain or hope. You can hope, but you can't expect that every sort of fiber of the company functions in the same way. And so you've got the majority of people that are good, and then you've also got people that are not so good, and you've got your politics, and you got your, you got all kinds of things going on. How do you navigate that? And furthermore, not only how do you navigate that, I've spent 35 years navigating landmines in the corporate world, let me tell you, and I've learned some of my best experiences, and it really hardened me as a businesswoman, but I'm still very heart-centered. I still care about people. But here's the thing. How do you know, what advice do you give people when they're looking, if they're in career transition or they're just starting out, I just graduate from school or in between? What advice do you give people? Sure, you can go on Glassdoor and they have like the reviews and this and that.
A lot of...
But how do you know, I don't know you 100% know company culture, but what advice would you give people when they say, but Joe, listen, I really like this role, the money's right, the location's right, but I'm really concerned about company culture. How would I know?
So here's the thing, and it goes back hand in hand, where when you're interviewing for a job, you're also interviewing the interviewer.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the interview, you need to be asking 3 to 10 questions.
Yeah.
1 to 3 about the role as a whole and the responsibilities, and 1 to 3 that give you an idea. So for example, what do you love about working here? If someone says the money's really good, they probably treat their staff like shit. Because salary is number 7 on the top 10 reasons why people leave a job. Salary
is number 7. That's interesting.
Right.
What's number
the
1?
way you're treated.
Right.
So if someone goes, you know what, we have barbecues and they bought us ice cream and they did this, they start remembering those little things.
Right.
And that builds a culture. And also to go to, when you have larger companies, yes, the organization can kind of have culture intent. But then there is a famous book called Tribe Leadership, that you can create tribes and understand the tribe. And there's enough nowadays personality assessments with AI background that you can use to kind of go, here's why you have turnover, here's why you have dissatisfaction, that then you can create a game plan. You don't need to have a Google budget to create a culture of celebration.
Right.
And
that's right.
I'm going to quote Guy Kiyosaki, who was the evangelist for Apple back in the day. And I remember watching one of his interviews, and he said, especially as a new company, don't bother with a mission and a vision because nobody really knows it. If you went today to, let's say, Wendy's and asked even the manager that works at Wendy's, what is the mission or vision of Wendy's restaurants?
Right.
They probably don't know.
Right.
Create a mantra. create a slogan.
And my favorite, sorry, John, I'm gonna interrupt you. My favorite, okay, there was a story. I think it was my history. I'm not a history major, but 1963, I think it was 1961, 1965. Anyway, it was during that time. John F. Kennedy was sending a man to the moon, and he walked into the NASA building headquarters. And there was a man who was washing the floors. He was the janitor. And the president goes up to the janitor and says, "Good evening. What do you do here?" And the janitor responded, "I'm helping to send a man to the moon."
Correct.
And that is such a powerful, powerful story, because the man was washing floors, but he knew there was a bigger vision. There was a bigger mission. He was part of something big. It didn't matter whether you're answering phones. It doesn't matter whether you're washing floors. It doesn't matter if you're in the CEO office. The point is, he was proud of what he was contributing to.
But this is where there's also a massive disconnect in companies today, because there's a lot of talk, but very little practice. And there's an old adage in English says, leaders lead by example.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
So if a leader, let's say a CEO, is walking around the office and sees a piece of garbage and picks it up, the staff will notice it.
Right.
If there's the CEOs are going to make pancakes for the staff and smile while he's doing that. I use an example
Remembers
of
your first name,
let's say
if
a company has a Halloween costume party.
Yeah.
Right. I get it that C-level executives have meetings, and I'm not dismissing that in any way, shape, or form. But even if there's a contest, if none of the C-level executives are dressing up, it's a mixed message. So I don't care if a C-level executive goes to the dollar store and buys a cheap mask for $1.
Right.
Come in for 10 minutes, show that you're wearing a mask.
That you're fun.
That you're part of, that you're not just talking it, you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, take it off and go to your meetings, for example.
Yeah.
Because the staff will talk about that. Was not the best costume, whatever, but the fact that it was engaged, for example. And so a lot of times, in my opinion, in terms of the culture and in terms of this, that something like a mantra, something like that, where if you start implementing right away symbolic things, like if you earn this key, this is what the key means, if you earn this. And so if you look at the most successful companies, like the top 50 companies in Canada or United States in terms of success, it's not that they're making the most money, it's the little things that they do for the staff that the staff remembers and appreciates and talks about. There's a baseball league and they have a team, right? Because after the game you can go for drinks and whatever, wings with the staff, and it's a way to build rapport outside of work. And there's a lot of mixed messages today on it, and I've had a lot of my own experiences where on the one hand I'm told, I think I shared this when I was here last time, but for example, when I worked in the banking system, I used to answer the phone, it's a great day or it's a fantastic day at my name's Joseph.
And they reprimanded you.
Right. So one of my coworkers complained and said that me saying great or fantastic could be interpreted as the bank is making too much money. Senior management had 3 2-hour-long meetings to discuss whether or not I was allowed to say great or fantastic.
3 2-hour meetings. C-suite executives at what hourly rate to talk about whether you should say have a fantastic day or not. Does that make any... That's someone's raise. That's someone's bonus right there.
Correct. Now, here's the dramatic irony and oxymoronic from that. After they banned me from saying great and fantastic because they didn't want to retrain the 120 people on the floor, the senior VP personally came to me and said, listen, you're super energetic, you're always smiling, you're fun. I want you to create a social committee to help boost morale because morale is really low.
I wonder why.
And I said, okay, you know what? First thing I'm going to do is organize a potluck. Now, here was the response of the senior VP. That's probably not going to work. The majority of people here are bachelors. They'll probably just give you $5, $10 and
that's probably not going to work. So shooting you down before it even
started. And I said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So what I did is I organized an Excel spreadsheet. This many people can bring drinks, this many people salads, this many cookies, this many main courses, this many desserts, and so forth. And I logged off the phone for 2 hours and started with the executives. And I said to them, I don't care if you make it, your partner makes it, your mom makes it, or you buy it.
Right.
But you're bringing in something.
Right.
Okay? And the day of the potluck, I logged off the phone to organize the food in a logical manner. Now, we had the equivalent of 3 full boardroom tables worth of food. For the next 3 months, everybody talked about how much food there was, how much variety of food there was, and the fact that they can...
And people came together. People
Right.
came together for the greater good of this gathering, right? And how
Yes.
happy were they?
Super happy. At the end of the quarter, I won or came in the top 3 for 7 out of 10 contests, including answering 151 trading calls in an 8-hour shift.
Right.
So you can imagine how busy it was. They refused to give me my bonus because I was logged off the phone for 4 hours to organize what the senior VP told me. And so this is where
it's stuff like that that drives me absolutely freaking insane.
But
and
this-
I'm writing a book too, Joe. Let's write it together, okay?
So this is where corporate culture is not you don't need to be Google that you have an internet bus with television and PVR.
No.
You don't need to have private chefs they're like, don't get me wrong, no one's going to complain if you have that in the office.
Free lunches every day. Now, you didn't get your bonus, and then ultimately that was the primary reason why you ultimately left that organization.
In
Is
part,
that correct?
there was other things that happened, but yes, it was kind of one of those.
I'm just going to say it right now, and it's anything goes. So, okay, that's absolutely freaking bullshit, and that is the kind of stuff that drives me nuts, and that is one of the reasons I left the corporate world. Don't get me wrong. When I speak about my corporate experience, my corporate career, I have met so many amazing people, so many mentors, wonderful people that I worked with, wonderful, wonderful people. I cannot say it enough. However, with the 80 to 90% of amazing experiences, there was that 10 to 15% of people that try to undermine you, to try to take a promotion away from you that you deserve, that feel threatened by you, that are intimidated by you, that
It's
are...
funny that you said 80 to 90%.
I can't even say
because
it.
80 to 90% of people in North America hate their job.
Okay.
That's the statistic.
But you want to know something? Okay, interesting. Really? Okay,
Yes.
So let's go on. 80 to 90% of people hate their job, and that's a North American stat. In 35 years that I've had a corporate career, 80 to 90%, I loved my experiences. Hands down, I will say it on the record. But it was that 10 to 15% of that negativity, that toxicity, the BS of people trying to undermine you when all you were trying to do was help, and you're raging against the machine. It was that 15% that left me exhausted, quite frankly, right? So it's an interesting paradox when you look at the stats,
and
right?
here's the kind of, we'll call it from 2 parts of looking at this. So a lot of organizations are trying to save their pennies to make a dollar, as opposed to looking at bigger picture and reward
Oh, you
recognition.
don't say.
So,
Yes.
like, my father was a civil engineer, God rest his soul. He was in charge of a project that involved 15 buildings.
Right.
Instead of hiring somebody at his level that has knowledge and in-depth knowledge and pay them, let's say, $160,000 to $200,000 as a executive director to handle what he did,
Right.
they decided we're going to kind of cheapen and hire more junior project managers at $100,000. But they ended up hiring 7. So instead of paying $200,000 for one that's qualified and knows what they're doing, they ended up paying $800,000 for 7 or 8 that didn't, because they couldn't handle more than 2 buildings at a time.
Yes.
And so there's that dichotomy right now that's happening in the workforce, where on the one hand it's like, I don't really want to pay the high salary because millennials can come in cheaper.
But you get what you pay for. I'm sorry, you get what you pay
and
for. I'm going to
millennials
say
a lot
that
of
on the
times,
record as well. Sorry.
might be technically good with certain things, but they don't have the maturity to handle big things or big situation. Like, one of my favorite books on leadership by Steve Farber is called The Radical Leap.
The Radical Leap.
The Radical Leap by Steve Farber. And the story goes that this guy has been by the book, loses his job all of a sudden. And he starts kind of reaching out to his friends. Is like, okay, can you give me advice? And then he starts kind of going, okay, what's your definition of leadership? And at a certain point, he meets this beach bum. And the beach bum tells him that leadership is the acronym LEAP. Love, energy, audacity, and proof.
Yeah.
He said if you cultivate love, you will generate energy. You will inspire audacity, and the proof will be in the pudding.
Yeah.
And then he said the difference between a leader and then what he calls a radical leader is OS exclamation M. Better known as oh shit moments. And so, right. But there's a level where, again, unfortunately, I shouldn't say the majority, but many organizations are so focused on management, not leadership.
100%. 100%. Say that again.
So too many companies are focused on management, not leadership.
Exactly.
And I love to use this case study. To my mentor, I apologize because I know you've worked with them or you work with them. But if I compare the two biggest giants in retail, Costco and Walmart.
Yeah.
So because I've done a lot of research on this, I know that the top store manager at Walmart in Ontario is making about $70,000 a year.
At Walmart?
At Walmart.
Okay.
Now, the four Waltons that own Walmart that are each worth between $38 and $45 billion believe that if they gave $1 raise to their staff, they would go bankrupt. Now, the sister built a $150 million museum in the middle of Idaho, in the middle of a potato farm, to bring culture back to the people. But because the museum was built, they could also open a few Walmarts around there. And if you say the word raise or the word union at Walmart, you're fired instantly. And Walmart has a very aggressive micromanagement, kind of hovering it over you, yelling at you mentality. Now, Costco, on the other hand, the worst Costco store in Ontario, does $1 million a day, not on a weekend.
During the week.
During the week.
And they pay their staff a lot more.
No. There is cashiers at Costco that make $100,000 a year. So
do you know anybody at Costco that can get me a job?
Yes. So they start cashiers at $17 an hour, and they measure cashiers on how fast you are, how accurate you are, and your ability to do quick chit-chat but keep the line moving.
Yeah.
If you score well in one of those three categories, within your 6 months probation, they actually bump you to $21, $22 an hour.
Right.
Because Costco has calculated it costs them on average $140,000 a month to lose one good cashier.
Right.
And so at Costco, 70% of the back office started being cashiers or pushing carts there. So when they promote internally, they give you a month and a half to train your replacement so that there is little to no gaps because you're sharing the advanced wisdom, not the basic training, for example. Now, Costco offers their employees benefits, especially if you're full-time, and discounts, especially on products that they want to kind of out of the store. And if you go to Costco and Walmart, most of the time when you go to Walmart, if you look now, they don't even want to pay cashier, so you have the self-checkout. And
at Walmart,
the majority of the people at Walmart look like they're ready to die.
They don't look happy.
You go to Costco, even on a weekend when it's super hectic.
Yes.
All of them are cracking jokes. All of them are smiling. All of them are energetic.
And you know what, Joe? Sorry, I want to mention this. You talk about turnaround, okay? I'm not saying all companies, but a lot of companies are notorious for not understanding if you treat your people well, and they're bringing in the revenues and they're doing their job, and you make it so that they don't want to leave, okay? And productivity goes up, and they'll continue to work really hard for you. You're going to lose a lot more money if you start to make them feel like they're underappreciated, undervalued. There's no room for growth. There's no room for promotion.
The monthly cost
this, that, and the other, right?
The monthly cost is between $50,000 and $180,000. Oh, yeah. The numbers per person.
Per person.
That's
I even
lacking
know
in
that.
your work.
I even know that. And then guess what happens? You leave, and then the rest of your team, they're not hiring right away, because they can't find the right person. They don't want to dish out the money. So the rest of the people are left, right, to do that other person's job. Then there's a strain on the rest of the team, and then more people start to
And then they
leave.
Call in sick,
and then they go on medical
frustrated
leave,
that they're there. And
yes.
this is where it goes back to the mental health and well-being,
yes.
because it's a vicious circle. So it's
Drives
either,
me crazy.
like it's one, like if a position has opportunities in the back end in terms of bonuses or incentives, then fine, have a slightly lower salary.
Yes.
But there's a level of, if you treat people right and treat them with respect, they'll find ways to be more productive.
And the job boards wouldn't be regurgitating the same jobs over and over and over again.
But again, so you asked me earlier why the regurgitation. So there's a few reasons. Number one.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. Sorry, guys. I see that there's a few people on on the show. Jermelyn Barnes is watching. Hey, Jermelyn, how are you? You guys stay tuned for Jermelyn as well. She is going to be taking the Tuesday, January 28th spot, and she's going to be talking about modern dating and relationships. Obviously, cannot wait for that one. Dwayne Mitely is watching. Hi, Dwayne, how are you? Great to see you. Jermelyn says hello. Addie says mental health at work is so important. Absolutely so important. She says, I agree with you 1,000,000%. Joe can tell you more about my story. Addie, you know what? I look forward to hearing more and to getting to know you as well. Lena says mental health is crucial in the workplace. 100%. Look, you guys, this is anything goes. We're being honest. We're being open. We're being transparent. I've been very open. In March of 2016, I had a complete and utter breakdown, and I went into work, stayed an hour and left and never went back. Now, I want to say that the toxicity in the workplace was a partial reason for it, but there were a lot of catalysts that contributed to that. My point, though, is this. I put up with it for months and months and months. And you want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and also because I had a team of 10, 12, 15 people that were relying heavily on me to look after them. And once I knew that they were going to be okay, or at least my interpretation of them being okay and landing jobs within the organization, because there was a lot of mergers and acquisitions, I ultimately left. Because that's what a leader does. They look after their people. They take care of their people. Otherwise, you know what? Why are you a boss? Just to say that you're a boss as a title, it doesn't cut it for me. So I'm very passionate about this. Let me tell you. Joe. Lena says, Joe, that's crazy. She says, yes. Lorena is watching. Hey, Lorena, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Lovely. Addie says, always going the extra mile. Joe is always going the extra mile. And this is what I really appreciate about him. And you know what? Like I said, there are people that are going to toe the line exactly the way that they got to toe it. And then there are people that will bend a little bit. And, we talk about confrontation. We talk about a lot of different stories. I know a lot of C-suite executives. God love them all. But some of them will take on the challenge, will take on the hard discussions, will make the difficult decisions. Some of them have actually said to me, Morella, you're worth your weight in gold. But if I bring you on, I will have to make a whole bunch of unpopular moves. Well, you know what? Make them. Because this is what I challenge people. If it's not good for the company, if it's not good for the culture, and if it's not good for the greater good, why are you keeping things status quo? A leader needs to lead.
Because ego kicks in as opposed to being of service.
Yeah.
And when ego kicks in, you have this mindset that, okay, we're big, no one's going to touch us. This is a perfect example of, let's say, what happened with Monster and Indeed. When Indeed first came out, Monster was like, yeah, we're Monster. No one can touch us.
Didn't Indeed take over? No, Indeed.
They're the number one job finding board.
Who did Indeed take over? Workopolis? Indeed, there was a merger of sorts there with Indeed and somebody else, no?
I don't know who they merged, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of Indeed invested in their AI, invested in their platform, invested in getting resources to people.
So they gave Monster a run for the money.
And they overtook Monster.
Right.
They overtook Monster. So now people go Indeed, not Monster. And it was just because ego kicked in. We're too good. We're too big to fail. In fact, there's a movie called Too Big to Fail, which is what happened with the banking system in the United States, and how even though they basically, the CEOs gave themselves $50 million bonuses and gave out a lot of bad debt, because the U.S. government owns 25% of the banking system, they gave them $1.8 trillion to kind of bail them out. First round was $900 million or $900 billion, and then another 900 because, and that's when the second 900 when they merged the banks to try and minimize some of the bad debt. Yeah. So the movie talks a little bit about that, but it's that mindset of ego as opposed to service, and a lot of leaders kind of go, but I'm the leader. And again, I respect that you've earned the right to call yourself a C-level executive or that you are an executive in whatever capacity. I respect the fact that you've got an education, you've got a background, and you've got achievements. But if you have a mindset of, one of my favorite adages in English is, the moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying.
Yes. And the moment you stop surrounding yourself with people that are as smart or smarter than you that can help you, that is when problems start. Because I'm telling you, it should not just be, look, I've been a boss. I've had a lot of people work for me, but it's always been a democratic environment. I've always made sure that everybody felt like their ideas were important, that their ideas were going to be executed, that we were all working together. It was none of this like higher up and you're down there at the
Henry
bottom.
Ford had it right. And then a few of my clients used to say, so Henry Ford, when he first tried to kind of come up with the concept of the car, was sued that he's too dumb to run the company. And in the court, they were like, okay, in history, who did blah, 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 and who did blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I don't know. And at a certain point, they actually, like, the prosecutor was like, you're too dumb to run Ford, kind of thing. And he went, listen, there's this little device where I can press a button, and I can get a history major to come in front of me and tell me all these stupid questions that you're asking me.
Right.
My focus is on building the car. That is what I need to know. I don't need to know all these questions that you're asking me.
Right.
And, one of my clients used to say, and kind of what Ford said, but in a different way, as the president of the company, I should never be the smartest man in the room. Right. And so...
Right. And if you are great, and if you're not, it's okay to give everybody else a chance. That's why they're there, to help you grow the company, the business, the culture, the morale, like the profits, everything.
And one of my favorite shows is called Undercover Boss. Mm-hmm. I always laugh at the end of the show when the executive goes, oh my God, I should talk to the people who work here. I might get some ideas on how to make things better. I'm like, no, you don't say. Like,
it's amazing, isn't
like,
it?
I
It's
get
amazing.
that you don't connect with all your staff, especially if you're, like you said, 10, 20, 30,000. You can't connect to everybody at the entry level and stuff like that. And I'm not dismissing that in any way, shape, or form. But there's a level that if you create the tribe mentality, you create incentives for people to contribute ideas.
Yes.
Whether, even if it's not monetary, but give me an award, give me a plaque, give me a pat on the back.
Listen, there's so many ways. The potluck. Yeah. Okay, I wanna do something really quickly, and then Joe, I want you to answer. You mentioned this earlier. The top 5 to 7 reasons why people leave companies. I think it's really important. But I want to just give a shout out here to Marca is watching. Hi, Marca. Thank you so much for tuning in. Arturo Flores says good night. Thank you so much for tuning in. Maria says company culture makes a difference. 100%. Lena says you're amazing, girl. Thank you so much. Listen, I am very, very passionate. I care a lot about people, and the type of leader that I was, and I think I still am, is the kind of person that wants to see people flourish and grow and develop. One of the reasons that I've been passed up, I believe, for promotions and things like that is because people were intimidated by the fact that I really did care more about people. Like, I care about the profits, but isn't it about people first, and then everything else will flow? And I really gave it everything I had. And sometimes you got people that are along those lines, and sometimes you don't, and you're raging against them, and we shouldn't have to. So I'm a real advocate for this kind of stuff. And I admire Joe, and I believe that he is on the right side of all of this. There's just too much. Look, I'm going to put it out there. Okay. Just because you are in a leadership position does not make you a leader. Just because you have the title does not mean you can do the job. I have seen people, you got a pulse, by default, you get the job. And there's a lot of people out there that are more than qualified, and they will not even get a phone call because of the ATS systems, the resumes not being like the keywords, people getting passed over for whatever the case may be, and it's not right. It just drives me crazy. But, okay, we continue on. Lena says, awesome movie. Wayne Mooland is watching. Hey, Wayne, how are you? Great to see you on here. Jermalyn says, so informative, Joe. Absolutely. And this is just the beginning. Maria says, thanks, Joe. You are a wealth of information. And I absolutely agree. So you said that salary is number 7 on the list. Number 1 is...
how you're treated.
how you're treated. So you're being not appreciated. You're not being valued. So that's like
or being micromanaged, yelled at,
right?
lack of appreciating your ideas. So literally the top 5 is
no room for growth.
No room for growth. Lack of appreciating your ideas.
Reporting structure?
Not necessarily. The reporting structure doesn't actually make it. It's more in terms of the behavior. Like there's a lot of talk here, but not an actual execution. So
right.
As part of being a corporate culturist, I also address corporate social responsibility. So let's use that, because big organizations will go, well, we donate to these organizations. We pick 10. We sponsor a hockey team. Some of them will even go, yeah, we build houses for Habitat for Humanity.
Yes.
But when I dig it a little deeper and I go, wait, so you're forcing your staff to come in on a Saturday, Sunday, which is my time, to build a house for Habitat for Humanity, and you call yourself social responsibility. You want to be social responsible, pay your staff Thursday, Friday to build a house for Habitat for Humanity.
Yes.
And then let me choose to come back on the weekend if I'm enjoying the experience.
Can I say something? And sorry, guys, just because you're hitting such, I'm very passionate about this, and you're hitting some really key points. Also, I just want to mention, we've literally got just a few more minutes, but I'm going to go the flow of this show tonight leading into the next time you're on this segment, because you got lots more to say. All I want to say, you guys, is we worked in a very fast-paced environment, and deadlines when you're working on proposals, marketing, brand initiatives, campaigns. Sometimes we had 5, 10 big projects at once. And I had people working all night long. I had people working half the night. I had people working weekends. You know what? I didn't expect them to come back in the next morning at 8. As a matter of fact, I used to give them the days off in lieu of that wouldn't even impact their actual vacation days. Okay? Because you don't want them burned out. You want them appreciated, and you want them to believe that, listen, we have to pitch on this, $20 million proposal now. We got to put in the work. But then when there were slow times, like some lull times, that's when you take advantage of it a little bit and you give people that break. And you know what? It went a long way. It really did. I don't know why no one else
I don't know if I have time to kind of share a quick story of how much this goes a long way.
Yeah.
So I was working for a company that owns multiple private colleges across Canada.
Yeah.
And they asked me to build a call center from scratch. The conditions was that my team would call leads that are more than 4 months old, more than 75 kilometers away from the nearest campus.
Okay.
Expectation was that my team would generate $300,000 for the year and convert at 1%.
Okay.
Now, first thing I did, just to kind of create a culture of celebration, is I hired about 8 staff in the first round. I went to the dollar store and bought each one of them a funky pen, a stress ball, like stickers. So when they came in, there was a gift basket waiting for them.
Yes.
Then I said to them, on their first day. Then I said to them,
we're going to talk about this on the next show.
Right.
First day orientation, how important it is.
Then I told each one of them, I want you to go buy something that you like, up to $30. Bring me the receipt. I'll give you the cash.
Yeah.
Because I want your cubicle to make it yours.
Yeah.
I gave every one of my staff a nickname. So I never addressed them by their name. It was always funny nicknames like Giggles, Hot Mama, things like that.
Hot Mama, just be careful.
No, that was actually an older lady, and she actually loved the name. On top of that, so every Monday morning, first thing I would do is go, okay, what did you do successfully? Each person would say what one thing they did that really stood out. And then I'd say, what objections did you have difficulty with?
Yeah.
Now, instead of me as the director going, okay, here's the solution, I asked the staff how they addressed it, how they...
Right.
And
you give them a voice.
So I remember, so in less than 6 months, we did $2.25 million.
Right.
And 1 week, because we were on such a track and we were converting at 10%, the VP called me and said, your target for this week is $150,000.
Right.
Told the team this, I said, guys, if you guys hit $150,000, the whole team will be rewarded. By Wednesday at 3 p.m., they were $220,000.
That's amazing.
So I told them, Friday at lunch, you guys are getting a gift. At lunchtime Friday, we were at $310,000. I bought all of them VIP tickets to the movies. I gave each one of them a $25 gift certificate to buy food so that there's no restriction.
Who doesn't love food and movies?
Right.
Yes.
And I sent them during work hours.
Yes.
Now,
100%.
the VP calls me and goes, did you just send your entire staff to the movies during work hours? I said, yep. He goes, what's wrong with you? I said, you asked for $150,000. we did 310.
Yeah. Yeah.
He goes, yeah, but it's work hours. I go, yeah, that's why I stayed, because I told the team, if anybody calls back, I'll answer the calls.
Yes.
You guys go enjoy.
Now, I want to say, sorry, Joe, we got to end it for tonight, but that is a leader. That is someone who makes an executive decision for the greater good of the business, but of the people. And I love that story. All right, guys, we are run out of time. We did start a few minutes late, my fault, but we made it up. Thank you, Frequency 5 FM. I really appreciate it. Joe, let's go with some final thoughts. We know that we're going to cover off
again. So we started off with the resume. Make sure that you add personality. Make sure that you add results. I don't care that you know how to do something. I care how good you are at what you do.
Yes.
Because if you don't quantify it, I don't know you, I'm not hiring you.
Absolutely.
Simply. And that if you start with quantifiables, you can incorporate that into the role, and there's a level of respect and potential recognition that because you interviewed with results, you wrote your resume with results, you are now set up to create results in the organization. And that will help you grow and help you be part of the culture, because it's not just we fill the chair and
absolutely tell the story, have a personality, right? Joe, thank you so much. I know you could go on. My final thoughts, you guys. First of all, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. Joe was a wealth of information, and we're just beginning. He is going to be back on Tuesday, February the 11th, and I am going to challenge him because, that's what I do. We're going to talk about age discrimination. Is it alive and well? I say that it is. I also want to talk about how I submitted my resume for a dozen jobs that I know that I am more than qualified for, and I'm going to share the results with you next time, and I'm going to challenge Joe to help me get some opportunities going, not just for myself, but for all of you. So we're going to use me as a science project. He's going to be back. I'm really, really looking forward to it. Want to talk about online applications. If you guys have certain categories of topics or questions, advice that you want answered, please tune in. Really appreciate that. Next Tuesday night on Anything Goes To, we've got Kim Bassler talking about health, fitness, and the overall mental mindset. On January 28th, we've got Jermelyn Barnes, our relationship coach, who's going to be talking about modern dating and relationships. But before that, this Thursday night on Anything Goes with my co-host Julia Scalise, we've got Karen Leslie, who's going to be joining us. She has a very, very compelling story. She has been through a lot, and she's going to walk us through that. And we've got Heather Linus Lindsay, who's also a reggae artist, and she has been through a lot as well. And she is going to be talking to us inside a woman's world. So join us 8 o'clock Thursday night, Frequency 5 FM. And on that note, again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are going to keep this going because there's a lot that we want to dissect and talk about. And we'll see what happens after a few months and how successful I am listening to Joe and all his wealth of information. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Frequency 5 FM. Everybody have a wonderful night, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Joe.